You ever have one of those moments where life hits you with something so outrageous, so completely off the rails absurd, that all you can do is stare and wonder if you accidentally wandered onto the set of some low-budget sitcom? Because let me tell you, the story I'm about to share has got it all: a power-tripping HOA president, a surprise home invasion, and the kind of 911 call that'll make you question reality itself. And if you've ever had the pleasure of dealing with an HOA board member who thought they were the sheriff, mayor, and king all rolled into one, yeah, you know exactly the kind of chaos I'm talking about. Drop a comment below if you've ever tangled with a self-appointed neighborhood monarch, and definitely let me know where you're tuning in from, because you're not going to believe the audacity that went down on my street. So here's where the show starts. Our HOA president, let's call her Karen because honestly, what else fits? Decides the bylaws give her dominion over everything, including apparently the air inside my house. Not the sidewalk, not the flower beds, but my actual living room, while I'm at work. And when I have the nerve to ask her to get out of my home, she calls 911 on me. But you want to talk about poetic justice? The dispatcher who picks up is my own daughter. Life's got a wicked sense of humor sometimes. Let me back up a sec. My name's Arthur, and I'm a forensic accountant. My world is spreadsheets, details, patterns, and tracking down whatever's hidden in the fine print, which, as it turns out, is the exact skill set you need for surviving HOA warfare. My wife Sarah and I moved into this neighborhood about 3 years back. Good schools, decent folks, lots of trees, your standard suburbia with, of course, a homeowners association. Now, I've never been wild about HOAs. Seems to me they just give nosy folks too much free time and way too much power. But the house was perfect, and the rules looked harmless on paper. First year was quiet. Then Karen showed up. Picture a woman in a blinding white Cadillac Escalade, always waxed, never a spot of dust, driving around like she's on parade, always dressed like she's got a reservation at a Palm Springs resort, even if it's just a Tuesday, in our not-so-glamorous suburb. She's the type who could look down her nose at you, even if she's a good 6 inches shorter. The initial warnings were laughable, a stern email about my recycling bin being visible, for God forbid, 3 hours after pickup, then a snide comment at the mailbox about the wrong shade of beige on my window shutters. Apparently my eggshell wasn't quite their approved sandstone. Me, I like to avoid drama. I downloaded the 50-page HOA bylaws dense as a Supreme Court decision and read them twice, highlighting and cross-referencing like it was a murder mystery. My wife thought I was losing it. It's just Karen, she said. She'll find someone else to nag. If only it was that simple. Karen didn't just nag, she tested. She poked. She wanted to see how far her little kingdom extended. The bylaws, by the way, are super vague on what the HOA can actually inspect. They mention yards and outside stuff, but nothing about walking into someone's living room unless there's a fire or something genuinely urgent. Pretty soon, the neighbors start whispering about Karen peeking over fences, marching up driveways, looking for flower beds she could nitpick. Poor Mr. Henderson down the block. No relation. Thank God got cited for having a garden gnome that was, get this, too whimsical. That gnome had survived 10 years, but it couldn't survive Karen. It was around then I upgraded my home security, got the cameras, the cloud, backup motion sensors, night vision, all of it. Not because I was paranoid, but because I believe in having receipts. Trust me, I had no idea just how much I'd come to appreciate that philosophy. Of course Karen noticed. She even made a crack to my wife in the grocery store. People sure are paranoid these days, aren't they? Pot, meat, kettle. But what really set the stage for this showdown was her so-called inspection. She started with little complaints, said my son's garage band was a business, accused our old mutt Buster of being a neighborhood menace. The dog is deaf and only barks in his sleep, just stacking up nonsense because I guess I wasn't caving fast enough. Every time I'd email back calmly citing the actual bylaw, sometimes including veterinarian records or a copy of my son's practice schedule. But it was like every logical answer just fired her up more. Her Escalade started circling our house so often I half expected to see a police logo on the side. All this was just the undercard for what happened next. It was a Tuesday. Always a Tuesday, right? I was deep in work. Downtown, Sarah was out of town. Chloe, our oldest 22, works as a 911 dispatcher, had a late shift, and Tom was at school. Should have been a quiet, empty house. Then at 1:30, my phone buzzes, motion detected in the living room. Now my heart about jumped out of my chest. I pulled up the security feed and there she is. Karen, in my living room. not peeking through the window. Inside, wearing a blinding turquoise outfit, sunglasses on her head, pacing like she's judging a home decor competition, running her fingers over my books and family photos. I was furious, but also weirdly calm. This was evidence, and I knew exactly how to handle it. First thing I did was call Chloe. "Hey, Dad," she mumbled, still half asleep from her pre-shift nap. "Listen," I said, "Karen's in the house. Right now, you need to get over there. Don't confront her unless you have to just witness and record, and if she gets weird, call the police. I'm heading home, but you'll get there faster." Chloe didn't even blink, dispatcher mode activated. "On my way, Dad." I packed up and told my secretary I had an emergency, broke the land speed record getting home, hands shaking the whole drive. Chloe got there before me. She called, her voice a low whisper. "Dad, I'm in." "She's in the kitchen." She nearly jumped out of her skin when I walked in. She says she's doing an official HOA wellness check because she smelled something weird from the street. Total lie. House smells like coffee and cinnamon. Chloe started recording, thank God. I told her to tell Karen to leave and to keep her phone on. I could hear the confrontation in the background, Chloe's calm, steady dispatcher tone, and Karen's voice rising, all authority and outrage, claiming she had every right to be there. Chloe didn't budge. She stood her ground like she was talking down a wild animal. By the time I pulled up, Karen was mid-rant on the front porch. Chloe, arms crossed and looking like she could handle the Secret Service. Karen was red in the face, waving her phone around, shouting about community standards and official duties, and threatening me with fines and sanctions. I kept it cool, just stated the facts. "Mrs. Henderson, you entered my home without permission, you're trespassing, and the cameras have recorded everything." Karen actually had the nerve to jab a finger at me and declare she'd call the police on me right there on my porch after breaking into my house. Now here's the twist, she actually did it. Dialed 911 right there, loudly declaring to the whole cul-de-sac that she was the HOA president and being harassed and threatened by me. Chloe and I just exchanged a look because the person who'd be picking up that 911 call at the dispatch center was none other than Chloe herself. Sometimes karma just hands you a script you couldn't write if you tried. From what Chloe told me later, Karen started in with the same act, shrieking about official duties and a chemical smell, but Chloe stayed all business, taking down details, asking just the right questions, calmly logging every ridiculous accusation. "So you were inside the house, ma'am, and the homeowner asked you to leave." Chloe's notes painted a very different picture than the one Karen tried to sell. Cops showed up 10 minutes later. By now, Karen's pacing the lawn like she owns the block, neighbors peeking out windows. She jumps into full performance mode for the officers, demanding they arrest me for interfering with HOA business, while adding fresh embellishments about how I'd lunged at her. Officers listened stone-faced, then asked for my side. I laid it all out, the security alert, the footage, Chloe arriving and asking Karen to leave, Karen refusing and calling 911. "We've got security and phone recordings if you'd like to see them," I said. One officer raised an eyebrow and nodded. Karen tried to spin it, claiming she'd smelled dangerous chemicals and was only acting to protect the neighborhood. The officer looked at her and said, "Ma'am, HOA bylaws don't give you the right to enter someone's home without their permission unless there's a documented emergency like a fire." Chloe queued up the camera footage, Karen plain as day, wandering my house. Then Chloe's phone recording Karen yelling about her duties, refusing to leave, and calling the cops. It was ironclad. The officer finally turned to Karen. "Based on what we've seen, you entered this home without permission, refused to leave, and called 911 under false pretenses. That's trespassing, and misusing emergency services is serious." Karen went pale and deflated right there. Gone was the queen of the neighborhood, replaced by someone who looked like she'd just gotten her crown snapped in half. They didn't arrest her, though. Maybe they should have, but they gave her the public dressing down of her life about property rights and the actual limits of HOA power right there in front of half the block. Karen shuffled to her Escalade and drove away. No eye contact, no parting shot, just quiet defeat. That evening, Chloe and I backed up all the footage in triplicate. I filed a public records request for the 911 audio. When it came back, it was golden Karen, ranting Chloe, cool as ice, a masterclass in how not to get your way. Next, I sat down with a lawyer who specialized in HOA messes. She laid out the options: criminal charges, civil suit, or force the HOA's hand to fix this broken system. I went for the big picture. We sent a formal demand letter with all the evidence, security footage, audio transcripts to every board member requesting Karen's removal and new rules about privacy and inspections. Within a week, the board called an emergency meeting. Karen, pale and muted, showed up with a lawyer in tow, but it was hopeless. We played the tapes. Her lawyer tried to deflect, but the evidence was overwhelming. Board went into closed session, came back 30 minutes later, and announced Karen's resignation and a vote on new rules for board conduct and property rights. The relief was immediate. Neighbors thanked me, some shared their own Karen horror stories, and at the next community meeting, the new rules passed easily. No more surprise inspections, no more abuse of power. Karen moved out a few months later. Her white Escalade vanished, her reign over. Chloe's story made her a minor legend. She even used it for her grad school essay on crisis management and got in. And me, I'm back to my numbers, but with a fresh appreciation for clear boundaries and a dash of poetic justice. Sometimes the universe really does serve up the perfect punchline. Now I gotta ask, what's the wildest thing an HOA has ever tried to pull in your neighborhood? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this epic takedown, and subscribe for more tales from the front lines of suburbia. Because you never know when life's gonna hand you the perfect twist, and trust me, you want to be ready.